Lions expose any weaknesses on the 49ers offensive side that you think the Chiefs will exploit? They have a good defense. That's a different thing about the Chiefs too. I feel like when you normally think about them, you think of their offense because they have the most talented quarterback like ever. But they're kind of a defensive team. There was a lower scoring game against Lamar, and they defense have really carried them to the playoffs, in my opinion.
The Ravens, were playing like the best team in football, like for much of the season. Like they were, especially in the second half of the season. I was not expecting them to go out like that. Mostly, I wasn't expecting the Chiefs to do that to them.
Yeah.
So that should be like cautionary to every 49ers fan, to 49ers, to Steve Wilkes, to Kyle Shanahan, because they had the perfect game plan to stop what looked like an unstoppable force in the Ravens. And so yeah, I think that it is concerning. Do I think that the Lions exploited anything that the Chiefs could? No, I don't think the Lions really exploited anything. The best thing the Lions had was their run defense, and I mean, I feel like Christian McCaffrey still, did
Yeah.
enough, so it didn't exactly ruin the game for the 49ers, clearly, and they have a really bad passing defense. But the Chiefs, like Steve Spagnuolo, put on a masterclass. He's been putting on a masterclass in the playoffs, and so I'm expecting a really good game plan from their defense and from
And then
Spags
Andy Reid giving him
and
to.
Andy
I
Reid.
love Kyle
Yeah,
Shanahan, but I feel like it's the opposite. You give Andy Reid time, you know it's going to be magic. You give Kyle Shanahan time. We keep saying this. He overthinks things.
yeah,
He overthinks things, and then Jawan Jennings is handing off the ball, and I know that they said that was a fluke, but it
yeah.
made sense. To be honest, it made sense because you're like Kyle Shanahan would do some weird ass shit like that right now because he overthinks things in these big moments. Um, but do you think it was now you say I just thought about this right now. It wasn't a question that I had written down, but earlier when I was kind of talking about the Lions being really good against the run, and you praised Kyle Shanahan for sticking with it, and Christian McCaffrey's ability to break off a few. What has cost Kyle Shanahan the Super Bowl in the past has been going away from the run. Are you confident that they will have like a good run pass balance in the Super Bowl? Do you think that Kyle Shanahan wasn't that like the question that people were kind of pondering earlier this season? Do you think that Kyle Shanahan has shown growth over the season, and are you confident in him as a coach going into the Super Bowl? Not
I mean,
necessarily that he has to win, but just are you? I think if you wanted to, sorry that this is scattered brain. I didn't write it down. It was just a thought. But I think if you're going to compare Dan Campbell to Kyle Shanahan, him having, and I kind of like aggressiveness, but him having a more slow, conservative game plan really paid off for him. Some people could say that Dan Campbell lost the game by not going up 3 scores right before the half and kind of putting the nail in the coffin, going for 4. That aggressiveness that got them there. So I understand why he wanted to be aggressive because it helped the Lions. But I think Kyle Shanahan showed patience in the Lions game that should be praised. And I think that he obviously they had luck and playmakers that really stepped up. But I did think his second half performance was impressive. Did that change your confidence level about him, or did this playoff run this season change your confidence level, maybe compared to prior to the season?
um, yeah. I mean,
Sorry, that was so long-winded. It was like all thoughts that I had in my brain at 1 second. And I think when you have a thought, it's like 5 seconds, but then you say words, and I'm like, I don't know how to do.
Yeah. I feel like it was nice to see. I do feel like Kyle has grown throughout the season, and he's kind of grown out of certain things he used to do that weren't so great.
And
Now
it looks like he trusts his quarterback more than
he
ever before.
does. He does. Like, I do still worry about him, like, going away from the run in a game like can't like the Super Bowl against Andy Reid, because I really only see him panic like that when the coach on the other side is like really good. Not to say that Dan Campbell isn't really good, but if like I don't know if it has to be like an offensive minded coach for him to like think he's
Respect
playing this
him.
chess
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
game
yeah,
with
yeah,
them,
yeah.
or I don't know, like but
We
I
saw
kind
that
of
against the Packers too. We've seen
yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
so he tends to do that against like offensive minded coaches that he like respects, and so I don't know. It could rear its ugly head again, but hopefully, seeing the outcome and seeing how it worked against the Lions, like you got to give Christian McCaffrey the ball.
Yeah.
He's just so dependable, and he's not going to let you down. Like I
You can't
said,
have any of these like later half games where your stars aren't the
yeah,
guys you mentioned.
exact
What was it?
that
Brock
too.
Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Get
They
those
need the
mother
ball.
effers the ball.
Yeah,
Specifically, just all game. Just
and
there's no
it doesn't
saving it. It's
even
the last game. Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't even matter if they're having a bad game necessarily. Like those guys will keep trying, and they'll keep trying to chip away at anything, and all they need is one hold to get a big gain or to get a touchdown, right? Like we've seen it so many times. So um of course situationally you gotta decide when it's the right move to run to. I'm not saying run it on like 3rd and 8, but it would just be nice to see some balance throughout in the Super Bowl.
I completely agree. I thought I just had to pull this up. I do my ADHD makes me do what Ashley does all the time. Weird, long-winded talks. I that describes every conversation I've ever had. But what I actually wanted to pull up was this question because some people in the
Yeah.
comments were asking about it. I just wanted to say it's a bummer. I'm
Yeah.
someone who I want my team to win and be the best whether it's the 49ers or just like this is how I think in general, is I want to go against the best. I don't want to win. I know some people kind of like a win is a win, and probably a win is a win, right? Like you want to win. But if everything could be up to me, every team would have all their players, all their stars,
Yeah.
100%. I think it's more satisfying that way, and I never ever root for injury. Football is such a brutal sport, and I have so much respect for what these guys do. I played soccer when I was a kid, and like cried when the ball hit my head, and they were like, "You build a callus to it," and I didn't want to do that. So the fact that they're like jumping with their whole a bajillion pounds scares me. I sucks for him, torn ACL. Hope he
Yeah,
heals up.
no,
Especially sucks
that's
to get it this late in the season. I mean, sucks in general, but when they happen this late in the season, it usually trails off into the next season. Hopefully, he's careful. Something similar happened with Mosley last year, and then yeah, injuries suck. How big of a loss? I think when you're speaking purely for like a 49ers team perspective, I mean, I think it's a huge loss and probably helps with the 49ers a little bit. Their backups definitely aren't as good.
yeah, I mean it's a bummer for Amenahue, like just because I think us all 49er fans like really enjoyed his time in San Francisco. I think we would have wanted to see him out there in this game. So it's a bummer. As far as how big of a loss it is, I'll just say like it was pretty early in that game that he left for the Chiefs,
Yeah.
and yet he was still able, like the Chiefs were still able to get a win on the Ravens. I'll say this though, it felt to me like the Ravens were just like
Not
Lamar
prepared for the
just
moment. Like
just kept
he was on
he
the
just
sidelines, like
he
the
kept
energy
trying
was
to
bad.
go for a big play, and it was like, dude, just take a check down, just take a 5-yard run, just take whatever the defense
Yeah.
is giving you, um, and live to see the next down. Like, but they just kept trying to boil the ocean on every play, and it just was not. It didn't work out for them. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how big of a loss it is for the Chiefs.
Hopefully, well, never mind. I don't know. I was gonna say hopefully a big loss, but just hopefully the 49ers win.
Yeah, I mean they have good players. Like we said, their defense is really good. Spagnuolo is putting them in position to win. So like, I don't know.
They're gonna
Maybe it
set
doesn't
their
really
guys up.
matter.
They're
Yeah,
gonna set their guys
exactly.
up.
So maybe
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who's out there. Maybe it's just
kind of
Spagnuolo
plug and
putting
play
the
at the
right,
time.
yeah, making the right play at the right time. Like sometimes that's all it is. And so I guess we'll see.